See, it's the difference. Let me put it this way. How many of you, let's say you have a boyfriend or girlfriend. I imagine a number of you either have been married or are married. And let's say your boyfriend or your girlfriend or your marriage partner came to you and said, hey, you know, I think we got a great relationship. I'd like to flirt just a little at work. Not a lot. Just, I mean, just casually. In fact, I would like to limit my flirting at work to Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I'd like to wear something semi-provocative to get a lot of attention. Or, I know we really love one another, and I just have these sexual impulses at times. I would like to have, not a full-blown affair, but I'd like to have sex with another person, possibly a prostitute, male or female, maybe 3 to 5 times a year. I mean, that's not like really bad, right? So what would your response be? Oh, wow, it's only 3 times instead of some people do 10 times. Or some people have an ongoing affair. What would your response be? It's a betrayal. It's like walking in and your boyfriend or your girlfriend is logged on and you think you have this intimate relationship and you see pictures of naked people and you're going, why do you need to look at them if we have this relationship? The issue is not, oh, well, I was only watching for 44 seconds. Some people watch for hours. I'm thinking that's not doing a lot for you. It's the betrayal of the relationship. When I do and you do, falsely believe the lie that pleasure and status and how I look and what I own and what other people think, when I believe the world system will deliver significance and security out of my success, I become a spiritual adulterer and I've betrayed my trust. And God is jealous. And just like a husband or a wife that would find out that the other one is flirting or having an affair, he's coming and saying, I don't tolerate this because I love you. What I know is that will end in disaster, and look what it's doing to us. So what does God do? He's opposed to the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. So he does, you can jot this in your notes, because I'm not making this up. Hebrews chapter 12, verses 4 through 11. He disciplines every son or every daughter that's his own. And so when I've fallen in love with the world, and I'm finding, God's a little section of my life, but I'm genuinely his son or his daughter, he creates a velvet vice of consequences to get my attention. And so it might start out in your health. You might lose your job. Might be frustrated in your sex life. Might be you gain a whole lot of things and you thought this was going to make you happy, and now you're empty and depressed. Might be your wife or your husband says, you know something, this lifestyle isn't working for me, I'm done. It might be your kids that got in the right schools and you send them to all these places, turn their back on God. He will bring the velvet vice, and it's out of love, to get your attention to say, oh, I think I need God. Because there's 2 ways you find God. The poor in spirit are the only people that ever connect with God. To be poor in spirit simply means I'm bankrupt. I'm in desperate need. You can discover that and voluntarily say, oh, Jesus, help me. Or you can discover it by this velvet vice. And some of us that are the most hard-headed, guess what? It gets harder and harder and harder and harder. I won't bore you with my 3-year journey of living as a carnal Christian. And then so you lose your girlfriend. And then in the middle of my basketball season, I pull a quad. And then, and finally it was, okay, God. This wasn't, for me, it was, okay, if you can't lick him, join him. I surrender my life, not out of nobility. I surrender my life because I'm a genuine son, and you so love me and you want the best for me, you will not allow me to continue in a lifestyle that dishonors you. So where are you at? Where's the conflicts in your life? Where's the frustration within? Where's the lack of satisfaction? Where's the if-then thinking? If only I was married. If we could buy a house. If we could finally have children. If we could go public. If only I could lose 22 pounds. If only, if. See, when you're playing the if-only game, and you can even be asking God, God, if only you would. God, if only you would. Where's your hope? What are you trusting to deliver? the world or God? Now, as you trust God, the amazing thing, he may give you a lot of those things, and you'll hold them with open hands as a stewardship and as a gift, and thank him for the great job, or for the house, or for the wife, or the kids. But it doesn't hold you up inside. And you're not looking to it to fulfill your heart and meet your needs. Now, I think we ought to get to the solution side, because many of you look like, oh, I never looked at it that way. As one guy told me recently, who had been coming to church for a while and kind of became that very successful person at the pinnacle. I met him through a series of circumstances just recently, and it was obvious he really didn't get what it meant to be a follower of Jesus. He came to church, and he said, I just thought you came to church and tried to be a good person the other 6 days. And you know, if you make it a couple times a month, I mean, God ought to be pretty thrilled, right? I said, well, why don't you read this book on what a Romans 12 Christian is? And he read it. And then he read it a second time. And then he said, oh my, I had no idea. You mean Jesus wants to be the very focus and center of my life, like what my work is now? You mean that I need to be separate from the world's values, that I need to come to a sober self-assessment and realize that I struggle with being arrogant, that God wants me to actually serve other people? And I said, yeah, that's what it means to be a follower. And it's been amazing to watch his life, even in a few weeks, get transformed, because what he's done, he's in the process, very imperfectly like me and like all of you, of practicing God's solution. Notice as we go on, he's told us the cause is our selfish pride. The consequences, we believed a lie, we betrayed a trust, we become an enemy. And then notice, here's the cure. God's prescription is humble yourself and God will heal your relationships. It's amazing. Humble yourself. Can you hear something? He doesn't want to have to humble you. He doesn't want to have to humble me. He wants you to voluntarily humble yourself. He wants to heal the relationship with a brother or sister, or with an ex-mate, or with a mom or a dad, or in your marriage, or a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or a supervisor at work. He wants to heal a relationship with someone that you used to be tight with and something happened, and you know what, you don't think about them very much, but just now and then when you're praying, that person comes to mind and those bad feelings come up. He wants to heal those. Now I'm going to read the passage, and here's what you need to get. As I read this passage, there's actually 10 staccato. They're either verbs or participles that all have the force grammatically of a command. I mean, it's going to go bang, 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 bang. And I'm going to read it, and all I want you to do is underline the verb, and then I'm going to summarize that, and we're going to have a process as we end our time together where I will know and you will know exactly what it looks like to humble yourself. And there's some powerful promises so that we leave here on the upswing and very encouraged, rather than, wow, I think I'm a friend of the world. I might be an enemy of God. This is not a great day. Correct? Okay, let's go. As I read it, get your pencil out. Humble yourselves before God. Underline humble. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Underline resist. Come close to God, and God will come close to you. Underline come close. Wash your hands, you sinners. Underline wash. Purify your hearts. Underline purify. Why? For your loyalty is divided between God and the world. Let there be tears for what you have done. Let there be sorrow, and deep grief. Let there be sadness instead of laughter, gloom instead of joy. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will lift you up. First book in the New Testament, written to a group of people that are baby Christians in the midst of a hostile environment. And he says, if you will humble yourself, God, he wants to not be down on you. He wants to lift you up. He wants to honor you. He wants to bring peace to your heart. He wants to connect you with the most important relationships. He wants you to be walking in love with him first and foremost. And then all these other things he'll add to you. So let's look at, there's actually 4 steps that come out of this. Number 1, give in to God. You might just write the word surrender. This first word where it says humble yourselves, literally the word is submit yourselves therefore to God. Submit. It's hupo tasso. Hupo to mean under, tasso. It's a military term. It's a picture of a group of people marching, and they're moving in a direction, but you're out of step. This is the Christian life. This is the call of God, and this is where the Spirit is moving, and you're out of step over here. He says, stop. You're a friend of the world. Get in line, get underneath, obey what you know. Whatever it is, stop. Surrender. Say to God, I'm not going to trust a future mate someday, some way, not a perfect family, not my job, not my money, not my looks, not anything. I want you to know on this day, I'm saying all that I am, all that I have, I surrender. I'm all in. And Lord, I'm afraid. Because if you do that from the heart, you don't know the outcome, do you? But you do know the outcome if you remain a friend to the world. This is a radical step. My friend, after he read the book a couple times, we had a conversation, and I said, let's get coffee, and I want to hear kind of what you're thinking. So I asked him, so when did surrender occur in your life? And he looked at me a little bit sheepishly. He goes, well, after I read it the second time, I just realized a relationship with God isn't something you do on the side. It's the core. And he looked at me like I didn't know this. He goes, man, this is big, scary stuff. I said it is unless God is good and sovereign and loves you and died for you and rose from the dead and his Spirit dwells in you and he's coming back. And there's only 2 reality, the false little reality of temporal now, get what you can, and the eternal one that I will give you peace that's indescribable, and I want intimacy with you, and I will give you love and joy and peace and the things that all that promise, but I deliver, and I want to be with you not just now, but forever and ever and ever. I said, it's not scary when you see that. The second step is a defensive one. After you, on this day in this room, which many of you will do, submit, then resist the devil, and he'll flee from you. Get tough with Satan. You got to get tough. In other words, you got to fight. That word anti shows up again. Resist. And the promise is he'll flee. You have to take a stand. Here's the issue. You have to cut off the supply lines. Satan is called a liar, a slanderer, an accuser, a condemner, and a deceiver. He's behind the world system. He's the one that puts people on the front of magazines that if you look like that. He's the one that has the list on Forbes that if you had that much money. He's the one that has all the nice cars that if you could sit in this one. He's the one that says if you could remodel your kitchen like that, then you would be happy. And then you remodel it, and then what you realize, you need a bigger kitchen. He's the one that tells you don't even have to be very smart yet. 2 years old. Do you want this one or that one? You want this one or that one? I want both. And he tells you you can have both. You can have a great family, work 90 hours, have everything work out, be in denial, skim on your spiritual life, skim on your relationships. It'll work for a while and everything's going to be okay. Except it's not. So you have to cut off the supply lines. Where's that coming from? For some of you, I would encourage you, this is so radical, but if you're in a relationship that is wooing you into that, break it off. If you're putting something in your mind or hanging around people that keep pulling you away from God, take a break. Do a 10-day media fast after the Warriors game tonight. I'm only slightly kidding. But do you understand what I'm saying is, if the messages are constant, if the people you hang with, if the romance novels, if the reality shows, if The Bachelor, if The Bachelorette, you can't keep taking all this into your brain and somehow go, oh, and I really love Jesus. You will either fill your mind with truth and with people that are in step with the Spirit, or you're going to fill your mind with trash that promises this and delivers pain and destruction and separation and divorce and depression and kids alienated from you and disappointment. And God says, I'm jealous for you. See, the thing about sin is it's not like you cross a little line and God has some big thing, like this huge refrigerator in the sky. Okay, Chip did this, 2 demerit points. No, this is breaking God's heart. This is a love relationship. This is, Chip doesn't believe that I'm good, so he thinks that, quote, being a great pastor or working 90 hours or having his kids turn out a certain way, his behavior tells me he's not really surrendered to me. He's trying to, see, it happens in ministry just like in work. And if you would listen to your behavior instead of your words and your self-talk, you would see whose friend you are, a lover of God or a lover of the world. And you have to resist. The third thing he's going to tell us, after you resist the devil, is draw near to God. And I love this one. He'll draw near to you. Get close to God. Remember the story of the prodigal son? I would remind you that the father did not go find the prodigal son. The prodigal son came to the awareness that he was bankrupt, that he was eating pig slop, and that God had a better plan. His father had a better plan. And when he turned and came back, the father ran to meet him. He was waiting to meet him. And when he was met, he didn't get what we would get. Man, if one of my kids did that, it would be a lecture. Why did you do that? I told you that, and you blew your money, and what's wrong with you? And get with the program, and you can live out in the bunkhouse, and you can earn your way back to me, and when you have enough money, then maybe you can be my son again. That's how humans think. God's grace is lavish. That boy came back with his tail between his legs. He was humiliated. And he had a speech about how, just hire me. I can't even be a son. I don't deserve. Of course you don't deserve. And the father says, kill the fatted calf. Then he took on a signet ring, which would be like a black credit card for the family estate. Slaves are barefooted, sandals. Then put the greatest robe, and the greatest robe was the father's robe. And God wants you to know there may be consequences. It may be difficult. You may have to apologize to people. You may have to own some stuff about your past, but he will meet you with open arms and love you, hold you, restore you, bring about healing. I just got a little note. I forgot to bring it. It's on my desk at home. And it said, Dear Chip, a year ago, after a service, we prayed together. And basically, I was very much struggling. I didn't have custody of my kids. I want you to know, after a year, I now have custody of my children, and God has restored our marriage. I've married people that have been divorced for 5 and 7 years who both came back around. I'm not saying that's always going to happen. Here's what I'm saying. There's times I feel so desperate or far from God, or I'm hurting, or I have a bad attitude, or I'm being selfish, and I become aware of it, and there's a promise. I'm going to resist the devil, and when I'm going to draw near to God, he'll draw near to me. And this isn't just an emotional moment. I don't feel like reading the Bible. I'm going to draw near. I'm going to read. I don't feel like talking to you, so I'm going to tell you. I don't feel like talking to you right now. I'm upset and angry about this, so I'm going to be honest because you're my father. I can't handle this. A young gal came last night, broken, tears. I said, how can we help? She began to talk a little bit, and then she said, I know I can't do this alone. I said, there's a young gal right there that really loves God, and I'll guarantee, you know what, you need to talk to a woman. I have no idea other than I can tell. It's deep, and it's going to be hard. You are not alone. We will go through this with you. And that's how you draw near to God. My friend, I met with him, and he said, he said, like, do you read the Bible like every day? I mean, he was kind of like, I said, yeah. Like, every day? Yeah. And it's not like I get brownie points for it. I said, I quickly forget whose son I am. I quickly get enamored with and get sucked into the world system. I read it, not because I ought to or I should. I read it so I could hear God's voice, that I'd be reminded that he loves me. Because what I know is I'm always going to be a product of my thought life. So whatever I think about, that's who I'm going to become. My current thoughts are the person that will show up 2 and 3 years from now. So I have to have the kind of thoughts in my mind. As a man thinks in his heart, so he or she becomes. He goes, oh, so where should I start? I said, start in the book of Mark, because it talks about a real follower. I got a text like one day later. Okay, I'm done with Mark. Now what do I do? I said, keep going right. And then he said, man, some of this is really hard. He said, I read that book about being in community. He says, I've never experienced that. I gave him the number of one of our pastors. I said, I think he could probably find a group that you would really connect in, because you can't do it. Are you guys starting to get it? Do you understand that God loves you? But you have to submit, you have to resist, you have to draw near. And then finally, notice what he says. He says you need to get right with others. Cleanse your hands and purify your heart. You got to make things right. So you look at your life and you say, so what am I doing with my hands? Is it work? What am I doing with my hands? Is it something immoral? What am I doing with my hands? Is it stealing? What am I doing with my hands? Am I abusive? Cleanse your hands. And it's not just external behavior. Purify your heart. Where's your motives? And then all those phrases about let your laughter be turned to mourning and your sadness and tears. It's the idea that this is coming out of a deep well of contrition. Let me give you a picture as we wrap this up. Can you imagine you have a boyfriend, you have a girlfriend, or maybe it's one of your sons or one of your daughters, and let's just take it because it's so common, and they're sexually unfaithful. And you catch them, it's your boyfriend, and you walk in and he's looking at these pictures, or you see him with another girl, or you hire a detective and find out your wife's having an affair, and then you confront, okay, you got the moment? You confront one of your kids, or you confront your wife, confront your husband, and when you confront them, they look at you and go, yeah, shucks, sorry, I won't do it again. We good? No, I promise. I promise, I'm gonna do it again. It was a weak moment. We'll be okay. How would you respond? All those words, look at your text. Look what it says. Mourn, let there be tears. Literally, the word is be wretched. It's a picture of turning away from luxury. But what if that happened, and the moment it happened, they burst into tears and they said, I've been struggling with this guilt. I've tried to stop. I talked with a couple people. I can't stop. Oh, please give me another chance. Please give me another chance. I'm so sorry. I don't want to lose you. And it was for real, and it was contrite. It was from the heart. And you know what? I'll go to counseling. You know what? I'll get on a program. I'm glad for us to live apart if we need to for 3 or 4 months. I will live the kind of life, whatever it takes. I don't want to lose you. What would your response be? See the difference? That's how you come to God. This isn't like, I did these 2 things wrong. Sorry, gotcha. Jesus, forgiveness. I think there's a verse on that someplace. Thanks. Notice the promise. It's so awesome. God's promise for the humble is that he will lift you up. Wow. Anybody here need lifted up? Anybody need deeply loved, deeply rescued? He wants to be your heavenly, good, kind Father.